Good evening. It is 6:01, and I am calling to order the July 2024 regular meeting of Southport's Planning Board. I ask that everyone silence, please, or turn off their cell phones. I'll note that member Dick Sloan continues to recuperate from some health issues, and Kevin Lachlan is on with us remotely tonight for a bit as he's in travel status. And with member Donnie Joyner's resignation, alternate Chris Jones will serve with full voting privileges tonight. Let's start, for those who can and will, stand while we hear from an invocation from Board Member Scott Jones, and we'll follow with our allegiance, please. I'm going to divert from our published agenda for just a few minutes and ask that Scott Jones and Chris Jones join me here at the podium. We are in the very unfortunate position of having to say goodbye to two other ETJ members of our planning board. Scott was named to an ETJ position in 2014, a 10-year stint. We're thankful for his hometown perspective and his service to this board, and also the Parks and Recreation Committee, of which he's been serving as chair. And Chris's analyses, application of the UDO, and honest common sense on submissions that have come before us. We'll miss his participation that began in 2020. Folks watched us as a board discuss the legislation that was turned directly onto Southport in this past legislative session. At last month's meeting, we discussed the track and the reality of the bill. I believe that comments in the aldermen's meetings and in our meetings here have given the town's citizens the largest part of the information disseminated. In the end, any negotiations and compromises alluded to didn't work, and all of Southport lost. The whole of our town lost, and most folks don't yet really understand what it means. For this planning board, we will lose a total of 3 excellent, valued members. Guys, you will be county soon, but we expect to keep hearing from you with comments and ideas because we consider you town and part of us. Please accept these small gifts to express our gratitude. Scott, for 2014 to 2024 years of service. Thank you so much. And Chris, from 2020 to 2024, we thank you so much, folks. Thank you, guys. Now, returning to our agenda, we're on item D is the approval of the minutes from our June meeting. Everyone received these in advance. In your packet, they're on pages 2 through 6. Are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve those June minutes as prepared? Thank you, Will. And a second? Thank you, Fred. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Item E is approval of tonight's agenda. You were also issued this in advance of the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Do I hear a motion then to approve our agenda? Thank you, Will. And a second? Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. There is a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. That also passes unanimously. Public comment. Motion to move into public comment, please. Thank you, Will. And a second. Thank you, Fred. Motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Deputy, do we have any comments to be read?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, that makes that simple for tonight, doesn't it? Motion to end then public comment. Rolling on. And a second. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate that. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Rolling to item G, old business, 101 East Moore Street, scheduling a committee meeting.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This evening, we have received some comments back from the North Carolina Department of Transportation and the chiefs of fire and police for this committee meeting, and we were not able to find a date that was able to work for the committee and staff. So we'd like to go ahead and reschedule that committee meeting so we can get it back on the agenda next month. I would take any options that any of the committee members would like to have for this meeting, if you have any dates.
And do we want to try to get this set while we still have Chris's services?
I would like to, yes.
I would prefer to do that as well. So, gentlemen, this is myself, Fred, and Chris. Do y'all have any preferences?
I'm pretty flexible,
Chris, how about you? Okay. Right, so that's the 25th. That should be out. Yes, that's a county meeting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Would Monday work for y'all? Is that okay? Monday be okay with you, Mo?
Yes.
Let's set some. Do you know a time, or do you need to find a place first and then just let us know?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it morning or afternoon preference? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
If we do that,
We're talking the 22nd Monday or the 29 Monday? I'm sorry.
I was looking at the 22nd.
Okay. Yes. If I get it out
Will
tomorrow.
that still be okay if we do it tomorrow?
Yes. Yes, we can get it out. If we get that notice out tomorrow, that's fine.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great. Let's roll
Yep.
with that then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just send something out with the time and the place then, okay? Do y'all have preference, morning or afternoon? Whatever you can find that's available, we'll kind of let that dictate that. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so we have no new business. So we'll move on to other business. Item I, we have that one item, and it's a big one, the ETJ. You have information in your packets, gentlemen, starting on page 7. So Mo, let's go through the current status, please, ma'am.
Yes, and as we've heard and everyone is aware that the House Bill 911 has been ratified, so the county has until September to rezone the properties that are within the former ETJ. So that's approximately 800 parcels and 1,900 acres of land. Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
when you say September, did the bill say, I thought it said August 26th, or is that you're just saying September 1st, kind of, sort of? Okay.
60 days, yes. I was using 60 days as the time frame. It will be before that when they have everything changed. So I want to give a quick update from the county, and then we can go through some information. I know that there have been some questions about annexation and how the city can move forward and with some recommendations from this board, so I'm happy to do that. So as mentioned in this memo, the county has been reviewing the area, doing windshield studies. I spoke with them even today. They still do not have a map to be able to share. They will have a map available next week, and I'm hoping to get one as soon as possible. I believe that they have to advertise for their August 12th meeting prior to this, so 25th, the meeting on the 25th. So hopefully I'll be able to get a map, even if it's a day before the 25th. Hopefully we can have something I can share with everyone to look at those, what they're proposing for these zonings. And when I was speaking with the county and looking through what they have available, just due to the nature of the development patterns, the type of development the county has, it's more linear, it's more suburban. They don't really have town centers, so their zoning districts don't really meet the same kind of zoning feel and traditional neighborhood feel that the city has itself. So trying to kind of fit, a round peg in a square peg in a round hole. So they have 5 residential districts for conventional zoning and 3 non-residential. So it shows you it's pretty, for as much area that there is, there's really not that many zoning districts that they have. So what we are also, I wanted to consider, and I spoke with them, is hopefully, we know that the corridor on House Street is really the biggest. I mean, that's what we really want to try to make sure that we get as much compatibility as possible for that area. Yes, all of it is important, don't get me wrong, but having the consistency and the continuity of the development on North House Street is really where I'm hoping that we can really get some help there. So I have asked them to consider an overlay zone on North Howe to keep the existing height and proportions of the development that are there. I don't know how far this is going to go. I'm going to put it in writing. I'm going to go to those meetings, and I hope that other people will also. That is one option. The other positive out of this is the county is starting the process of updating their UDO. They've finished their comprehensive plan, and so they've hired a consultant, and they're in the beginning stages of a UDO. That is good for us because we can ask that they provide new zoning districts. They can provide a zoning district that is specific for any of the properties that are within this ETJ that have nothing to do with the rest of the county. So we can really, if we are taking the opportunity to speak with the county, work with the county, come to the meetings, go to the county planning board meetings. I mean, we're going to really have to work on this, especially when they're working on the UDO, that we hopefully can get some traction there, and that they'll make some zoning districts that really are customized for us, that fit the feel of what we have existing in the zoning. Because right now, their largest lot is 7,500 square feet. So that's where there's a lot of, wow, that isn't the same thing. And then they have a rural residential, which is a larger lots, but also it allows very intense industrial type, agricultural uses that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate either. So it's finding the balance of what they have now and hope that in the next 6 to 8 months, when they're working on this UDO update, that we can get some new zoning districts in. So I wanted to give you that information that I found out, so I thought that was maybe some light at the end of the tunnel for that. So I was asked that, what can we do? Is there anything we can do? And the only thing for the city to gain any more traction or regain the jurisdiction is through voluntary annexation. And the statutes allow us to do that. We've just seen it recently with the Turtle Bay subdivision that they have annexed. So if this board wishes the staff to craft a letter, to go out to some of the property owners or all the property owners, I'd be happy to work on that. I would like to have a discussion this evening because we have to have some benefits to really make people want to come into the city more than just so you can say that you're within the city of Southport. Maybe that's enough. I would hope maybe that is. But some of the thoughts I had were the police and fire response. But that's within the fire district. You can't tell me that the police wouldn't respond to some of these if they're there and available. But it is definitely a benefit to consider. Street maintenance is one because the county will have all state roads. House Street is a state road, but if any of the other streets that if they were within the city, they could become city streets. Lower flood insurance rate with our National Flood Insurance Program. We have the CRS program that reduces citywide the flood insurance, and even if you're not in the flood zone and you want to carry flood insurance, it still reduces your costs there. And just having a voice within the city as a member of the city itself rather than county. So that's just kind of overview of my memo, what I've heard from the counties, just an update. And also I've been asked that if there are any concerns to please contact or questions the planning department. This is anyone, citizens, boards, whoever they would like you to, really to contact them if you have any questions. And they were happy to speak with anyone. And their number is 910-253-2025. And this information, as well as an email address, was in the public notice that was published. You can find it on our Facebook page and or the city website as well. So you can find that same information. So at this time, I will turn it over to the board for some discussion, any questions, and see what we can do from here, okay? And I'll just leave the map up. And then I do want to say that I have the information about the community meeting next Thursday. So I spoke about this community meeting on next Thursday on the 25th. There's at the Brunswick Center at Southport, which is the senior center. So that's located in the shopping center behind Walgreens and Famous Subs, where the voting precinct is, if that in that ward. So there's going to be a true presentation at 5:30 and 7 p.m. They were hoping people can stagger. It's definitely an open house. I think they're going to have opportunities with maps and staff there to speak with people one-on-one, as well as the presentation itself. And they recognize this is a smaller area, so they're hoping that the two different times will provide enough leeway for those who work or different timings, and also for any crowds so that they can kind of juggle those. So wanted to make sure that that was there. And now, there you guys go.
And now this meeting that's shown, and then the August the 12th one, I wanted to be sure that everybody understands these are not city meetings, these are county meetings that have been set up. I think there was some confusion at the alderman's meeting. At least one thought that it was city meetings that were being set up and were concerned about so many being scheduled, but these be it. There are two, and they are county meetings, not city. So, and I would encourage folks to attend as well, those that live in the ETJ, to find out what's going on, and then those that are concerned, those of us in the city that are concerned about what's going on as well. Who's got comments? Fred?
So I have a couple thoughts. So consistency and development along the business corridor would be a big item. If people were part of that, they could be more ensured there would be consistency in height, for example. There would be consistency in sidewalks. I mean, I can't see the area where the ETJ lots, there's really no sidewalks up there, but one day there will be, and I can see Southport stopping their sidewalks, and then that's county, so it's dirt from here out. So that would be kind of silly. Height restriction, can you tell me what the county would allow on House Street, Mo?
Maybe. Sorry. They have a maximum height up to 75 feet with planning board approval, with additional yard depth. So if you have increased setbacks, you can go higher. So it's a floor area ratio in that sense.
Sounds like it could be the wild, wild west.
It's just a very different zoning district and with a lot of different uses and standards.
Are all the lots on House Street commercial business, or is anything? Well, the reason I say that is because there's a 40-foot height requirement on what they call conventional development, which is those 7,500 and less lots.
There is, but there is also a caveat on some of those residentials I've found, and I don't know where, and so I haven't really dug deep enough in this ordinance to know exactly. I mean, so there's a lot of different caveats and different uses that can allow different things, because on the conventional commercial, it says 35 feet, but then with certain approvals, it can go up higher. So that's...
They're density bonuses where it allow you to get up to 70 feet from what I've read, but just individual lots as they are 40 foot
So there are
for
some
residential.
along, hold on one moment. That's residential. It says it's on. Okay. So you asked about the residential. So along the corridor itself, right on House Street is business district. But some of these, this one section here, this whole area is residential, zoned residential. So they are, oh, there it is, thank you. So there have been some inquiries about this property prior to the ETJ being taken over, so I don't know, and they were going to annex, so I don't know if that's still on the plate or not. But that is the one area that is residential, but it's not on House Street. It's
Testing,
directly.
testing.
And then there's some others behind here that are. So they're close. They're very close. Does that work? Yes. So that's what we have here.
So that area that you just pointed to, they are in discussion about annexing in? Is
They
that-
were.
They
I
were,
don't know. I haven't heard anything since.
because now they have the
Right.
option not to.
That's right. And I would hope that we can still have some conversations. I'm hoping that happens.
There are 3 standard commercial lots within Brunswick County's UDO, and their height restrictions are 50 feet. Just FYI.
I knew there were only 3 commercial, yes. Again, I didn't study it. Does anyone else have any thoughts that they want me to make sure is included in the letter that you asked me to write?
Your point about creating an overlay district, from the sounds of it, that the ETJ relinquishment might be a thing that is being pushed elsewhere throughout the county. And if that's the goal, then I think it would be interesting to get some sort of playbook in place. So it's easy to think about how this affects House Street and how this affects other neighborhoods, but it would be like, can we figure out, this is a big ask, to work with other municipalities to talk about and plan some sort of transitional zone. So I think it would be easier for the planning board at the county level to swallow the idea of a transitional zone for all ETJs, rather than just, hey, let me do this one thing for Southport. Just an idea, I don't know. But.
Well, it's absolutely, definitely. It's absolutely something that we can work towards. Right now, I mean, immediately we have to take care of this, and that's the hurry up that we've got to get something going, and we hopefully can get some considerations for these types of things. I think with the UDO update, that could be something, because I think there may be this is kind of the wave of the future of these ETJs. I mean, you can kind of see some of it happening already. So if this is going to be the precedent coming on, I think, yes, there would be an opportunity, I think, for these municipalities to come together and work towards, like you said, some sort of transitional zoning. But, right now in the next 30 days, we really need to try to get as much as we can, is what we're hoping for.
For consistency, this could also affect things like street lights. The town stops here. Underground power, the town stops here. You guys can't have it, your county.
I like the idea, Mo, of, like Chris was saying, approaching them about this district, our corridor. I mean, I hate to call it that, but that's what it is, and that's what we're concerned about. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to be the example. But we're going to be the example on a whole lot of stuff, aren't we, in this? But to kind of lead the way, and it sounds like, from what you're saying in conversations, that you already have a good rapport started with them, with what we're working with them to provide for what they've got to look at. It's an awful lot for them, honestly, too, to have laid on them. So I think it's a really good opportunity. I like that idea, to try to see if we can have that, and it would kind of pave the way for them then for what I believe is surely going to come for the other towns as well. And really and it could be something for Brunswick to be a leader for in the rest of the state, because look at how much was taken into that one bill. What's involved in what is to come elsewhere, I think, is a really good thing. It would be nice for us to have that to our credit, to have helped with that, and for the county to establish that.
Because they are working through a UDO update, I'm curious to see how much of what we're looking at and basing conversation and question around is going to change. And I understand that they're probably keeping that close to their chest, but it'd be interesting if you could ask.
I don't believe that they've even started the update yet. From my understanding is they've hired the consultant, but it has not yet started. So that's where I thought it was okay, we haven't even started it. They're not going to have to go back and try to add anything when they're looking at their zoning map and their future land use maps to get the zoning. They can say, okay, what do we need to work here? Like we've got some higher density, and then we've got, going into Southport, the transition, like you say, Chris, that it's a way to hopefully work something in that's more like a traditional zoning, more so than a rural type of, or linear. I mean, they've got high density, service for the highway commercial type of developments, and then cluster or, rural is really it's one end to the other of spectrum of their allowances. So
as far as voluntary annexations, we talked about some of the benefits. What would be the negatives? City taxes, dozer taxes?
So, I mean, taxes and the development. I mean, the jurisdiction itself, just the standards. If you wanted to have more density, if they weren't going to have a different zoning district. I mean, That's a plus, like for them. Like for us, it's a negative, for a property owner, their standards would be lower. You know, their tree ordinance is not as strong. They would be paying, you know, they would have to, if they came into the city, they're gonna have stricter rules to follow, they're gonna have higher taxes. So that's why we're trying to find as many things to say this is a benefit. We want to be able to provide you something that you want to be part of the city and be proud to be part of the city.
Let me ask a question. I'm always trying to play catch up. Mo, are you trying to do this on your own? Who is working with the city, with the county?
When you say, am I doing it myself? I'm not doing the changes. So the county is,
No.
yes.
I mean,
Okay,
you
so
seem
it's
to be on
really,
the front line.
I'm on the front line, yes.
You're stepping in front of bullets right now, I think.
Well, as much as they're willing to give, I mean, there's not many bullets being shot right now. As much as we ask, there's not much being shared.
Okay.
So yes, I'm working as much as I can with the county. I'm working with their planners. Then they are kind of the same boat. They're like, we're just doing the work that we're asked to do. Is how I've been.
County.
Yes, the county.
Okay.
So.
All right. One, I like the idea of transitional zoning. In fact, I mean, we have St. James here, we have Oak Island. I mean, it seems to me they all need to be working together with it. But you asked three things, and to add, and one with consistency, compatibility, and continuity. That's what we offer. The county cannot give us consistency. They cannot give us compatibility with existing structures and usages, and they cannot give us continuity of the quality in what we have started here. So I think that's three things. And the other is a question, is that I own a piece of property, let's say, and it's now out there in the Wild Wild West. And I get the county I use their zoning and I get what I want. Can that person, after completion, turn to the city and say, I'm ready to be annexed now, even though it's not a compatible use? That to me is something that could be very dangerous if people build something out there, develop something out there that we really in odds with, and then they say, okay, we've got it done now, we want it to become part of Southport. How does we respond to that? That to me is, because Southport is going to grow, and he says as people want it to be annexed, it's going to grow. So how do we control something that we had no control of? Am I making that clear?
I mean, the annexations do have to come through the Board of Aldermen for approval. And if it's already been developed, I mean, a lot of times the annexations happen when it's a vacant piece of land and they want it to be just part of the city. That's like Turtle Bay that just came through. They did an annexation for their planned unit development. They had a portion of their property that was absolutely in the county. So before this ETJ relinquishment all was started, they had a portion of their property that was just straight county. So they had to come in for an annexation because the ETJ did not cover their whole property. So they annexed in, so they are now part of the city. Someone could petition. You have to make sure that you have a lot of statutory requirements that are met. And I believe that, I'd like to believe that if there was something that was very incompatible with the city, I mean, that's really up to the Board of Aldermen. I would hope that would be something they would consider.
But that leaves us, this leaves us open. I think we're all still trying to understand the impact this has. And looking at that map, it's mind-boggling. I hope, and I'm sure that the county is looking at wetlands and et cetera. They have a lot of work to do. And we are county residents, so we have as much to say in the UDO review as anyone does. And Southport should be better organized in many ways. So I guess the possibility of Southport having a big say in the final UDO review might be a plus. I'm just reaching out and thinking out loud now. We all are county residents, so we are a little bit more organized than out there in the middle of nowhere. I'm grasping now, and I'm not coming up with conclusions as I am concerns. This county UDO update is going to be extremely important, but that's going to be done after the rezoning takes place, correct? What's the odds of them being able to add new zoning usages in the next month?
0. I mean, I'm going to be
No,
very
this
honest.
is what we.
Yes, I mean, they're going to have to use what they have in
Yeah.
place.
So then the county UDO comes up, and that's when people scramble, and that could take a year. And as fast as this area right here is growing, that's a year for people to jump in and do things under the existing county zoning that we lose a lot of compatibility. We all understand developers see opportunity, and I do not blame a single developer for jumping at an opportunity. And I'm just I think we're all trying to figure out how to minimize that transition. And 30 days is not enough for a transition. Options to consider, benefits, and again, I think we're going back to simple things like sidewalks, which are continuity. Compatibility is building sizes and all, and then continuity. We give people who want to live and work in Southport, and develop in Southport, we give them those items. And it's like I say, consistency, compatibility, continuity, and you word it every way you want, but we're getting ready to probably lose a lot of that ability, and we already have with who we're losing on this planning board. I guess that's all I have to say for right now.
Mo, would this be a case where, I forget what the organization's called, is it Cape Fear? Yeah, and having some help or input from those guys?
I think that at this point, I don't know what they could do, honestly, for this right now. Now, could they help us maybe put some things together for future changes? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's no reason why they couldn't. But we have to have really we have to know what we need them to do before we can just go out to them and say, we need help. So we need, some direction. I think that, it's unfortunate that it has to happen so fast. The 60 days is no time. So, I mean, to me, like I mentioned in my memo, like just getting something as close as possible, just so there's something, if there's 0 zoning after 60 days, that's worse than something. Not that makes it really much better, but.
So in the case where we don't really know what to do, wouldn't it be helpful to have somebody that might know what to do? I mean, it wouldn't be me to be an expert to advise the city, but I would think there's somebody out there that could step in with the wisdom and help the process.
Can you explain what process, I guess I'm confused of what part of this we would want direction about with? This right now, today direction, or future direction?
I think what Fred's asking is that, so I'm making up a number for sake of conversation. The city has 100 lots in ETJ. Those 100 lots are going to transition and be removed from ETJ and now apply to, or rather be governed by, the Brunswick County UDO. So all of those 100 lots, they're zoned R20, R10, BD, things that we're familiar with. And I think what Fred's asking, and something that I've already spent too much time doing, is that looking at those lots and figuring out, okay, R20 in the county UDO looks like this. And like you mentioned, there are 4 different residential zone lots, one of them being an R7500, as they call it. And depending on the use, it has standards. But then there's that residential rural, which is low density, which is a 10,000 square foot lot or higher. In most instances, what I'm assuming is what Scott and I will end up being flagged as. But I think if we could, I don't know how much work I guess the county is going to investigate all those lots, or if they're just going to kind of, like that, I guess that would be interesting. Like, how do they actually look at all the lots, or is there some computer that looks at all the lots and says, okay, this looks closer to this? And I think there's, what is this district? There's a commercial zoning district called NC. It's one of the 3, but it's also the one that has very restrictive permitted uses in the table of uses of the county UDO. And neighborhood commercial is what it stands for. So the neighborhood commercial, I think, is akin to what we would see in House Street. So the recommendation for the city, or one I'll make, is that we ask that if the city can maybe put together a list of things that are important, and maybe that's something the planning board does. We put together a list of something that's important, say, hey, these 10 lots or 50 lots, however many that live on House Street, we ask that all of them be zoned to, I just looked at it and I still forgot.
Neighborhood commercial.
Neighborhood commercial, NC. I think essentially that's the transition that's going to happen, right? And my assumption is that the county staff, essentially you, but the county version of you, has been asked by their commissioners to essentially take over all of ETJ. And that's it. There's just this one-line sentence of take over the ETJ, go. And so they come to you more with questions, I'm assuming, right? Rather than directives? Okay. Like investigatory questions where they're asking things rather than asking your opinion of something.
That's correct. They have come to staff asking about the different plan unit developments. So what is the underlying density? What was the underlying zoning district prior to this PUD? What are the future uses that may not be there now that are in phased projects? Even those that are contiguous but are adjacent but not within the ETJ. So they are asking questions about what are these going to be? What is there? And they have been driving around. They have been doing the surveying in person. That yes, it is a lot. Yes, there are a lot more county planners than Southport planners. So I think that they have been doing the surveying. And yes, I have been saying, yes, we want these most, as close to possible as they can be. And I think that the best way they knew how to do it were these community meetings, as like rolling out the map and having this meeting so that everyone can say, and I hope that they can give better understanding of the uses of every single zoning district. That is a lot. I mean, it's a lot to look at. It's not just, oh, neighborhood commercial sounds good in the definition. Like, you really have to go down, dig deeper into really what the uses are. And, I mean, really
So other than the city website and Facebook, are we as a city doing any mail out or anything to let these folks know about this? We need to encourage ETJ residents to show up, and I hesitate to say it, but show out at these meetings too, to say, if, like we've heard all along in this, there are a lot of folks that didn't want this to happen. They need to let them know, we want to be in a zoning area that's going to keep us like we have.
the county sent a flyer to every property owner in the ETJ.
Wait, when did that get sent out?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm still waiting for mine. Okay.
I was told that every parcel owner in the ETJ was sent a flyer. Now, was it yesterday? Possibly. You might get it tomorrow. I don't know.
When I spoke with Megan from Brunswick County, it was earlier this week, so you should, I think, be getting it eventually, but when we connected earlier, it was earlier this week.
Thought. Southport is being reactive. We're not being proactive. And we're trying. One-on-one, this type of thing. There's an old saying that the best defense is a strong offense. So far, Southport has not had any offense. If I could do it, and that's the if, and that's for children, if I had my way, tomorrow morning, this town would start looking for a public relations firm that understands zoning and land usage, and get that person running 24/7 for the next 2 weeks and come out with a list of reasons why Southport is Southport and our benefits. I look at all these options to consider. Yeah, and then my three: consistency, compatibility, continuity. Those are feel-good things. Southport, we didn't get proactive when this came out of Raleigh. We didn't get proactive about getting it out to the people here. We are still trying to play catch-up with the county. The county is proactive. They're trying. And they're going to make a good decision based on theirs. And this is what was that Chris or Fred that said, let's hire somebody. And that made me thinking, this is a public relations. We need somebody that can tell us how to pick out those things that are Southport, who to send them out to, when to send them out to, how many times we send them out to, what we say. There's nobody in this planning board or in the city that is really strong enough to say, we've been caught. By God, we're now going to take it to the county. We're not going to take it sitting down. We're going to take it to the county, and if we get somebody upset, we hate that, but we've got to protect our way of life down here. How is it possible? Anybody got a retired public relationist who could start this tomorrow morning and pull this together? We've got pieces of it here. That's not going to work. We need somebody, some group that can absolutely go into the nuts and the bolts of what's happening. There's some positive things maybe, but I don't see them. And how do we get it to the people? How do the elected officials get it? How do the staff get it? How does the planning board get it? How do the Joe and Jane get this to understand this is serious? If we got enough money to do some of the things around this town, by God, we ought to get the best public relations firm we got that understands zoning, and get them on board tomorrow morning. We can't do it. This is our future. We can't do it. We're getting ready to lose 2 good members. We've got to go beyond us. We've got to go beyond the alderman. We've got to go beyond the staff. And I don't know how we sit down and get to the people that say, by God, you're right. We've got to have somebody that can take this back quickly and succinctly and get into details about different zoning comparisons, what this is going to do to you who've got an existing house right here. And guess what you're going to have next door to you now? You've got an existing building, a business, commercial. What's this going to do to the empty lot next to you? This is our one chance right now. We can't wait. I mean, they're going to rezone in what, a month? A little over a month? And then how long is it going to be before we have a UDO that we have input in that goes into effect? A year? 2 years? What's going to happen on High Street and all these residential areas in 2 years if the people don't understand what they're getting, what they've been given? That's one option. But we need something strong, and we
So-
don't have it yet.
So everybody knows 60 days is nothing to have all of this start. And, I mean, literally, this first meeting is next week.
Yeah.
And it is dangerous. We have a new city manager. Has there been discussion about like from what Roy is saying, has there been any discussion in City Hall about making any kind of effort towards this to rally the troops, to see if we can have a PR, something that would work with communications, but a PR consultant that would start efforts, understanding it's going to go past next week. I
No
get
question,
that.
yeah.
But so that folks do rise up, get involved more in this, and then, Mo, should we develop a committee to start working on our suggestions for the county UDO update? I think, and again, Roy is right, we're all county citizens. As this is being looked at, I mean, we can do it as a planning board, but I would encourage everybody, I mean, not everybody wants to dig into the county UDO. We understand that, but everybody needs to understand what's going on with it. Maybe we need a work committee to start looking at different parts that you've already identified. Like, and even for us, conversely, should we start being proactive, as Roy mentioned? Let's start looking at things in our own UDO that we may need to tweak now that this is happening. Like when developments out in the ETJ back up and say, oh, we've decided we want to come into Southport now. What's the protocol for that happening? And is there anything special that needs to be looked at because of that? Because they were ETJ under that development first. Maybe we need to tweak our own ordinance for that. But, and you've probably already thought about that. Okay.
Yes, there are definite changes that need to be made to the UDO. I have been working on that, putting that together. There are uses that are only allowed within the ETJ that are going to have to be brought into the city, so we're going to have to find a way to make that happen. If there's any types of zoning changes that might need to be made in the city, are there zones that we need to make sure are available in the city limits? So there's a lot of things that definitely need to be looked at. I think at this point, putting a committee together is maybe premature until we get some information, some quantitative information together so that we can really have something to work with. And also, I don't know when this UDO starts, so I don't want to have us just spinning our wheels about that until we really know what's going on for that. Now, our own UDO, yes, and I want to be able to make sure I can get everything together that we need to think about before digging into that one, before we do that.
But now, going back to talking with our new manager, and all I've heard is Stewart. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. Did I ask you something you didn't want to answer either? Okay, Stewart. We'll just say that. Is there, can you take back from this board that we'd like to have the alderman or like City Hall to look into, seeing what kind of positive PR we can do about this and promoting Southport and the great things we've already done, what's going on here to our ETJ residents, letting them know this is hook or crook, this is what you're missing. And I think that could help if we get into the conversation that Fred's brought up before, the encapsulated properties or those that are on the corridor, to ask them to come in. It could certainly help pull that as well. Not that you've not got good options here, very positive things in what we've talked about here tonight too, but that kind of expertise would not go unheeded, I don't think. It'd be some money well spent if we were able to find that and get that running.
I got a question for you. I can't remember his name, the guy that helped us when we were working on UDO.
Wes McLeod.
Well, would he not be a good resource to, you're trying to figure out the best zoning that we could get from the county that they have, and I've got confidence that with the time, your research will probably do that. But if would I'm sure he would answer questions to you about that. Yeah, I mean that's his line of expertise, right? Wouldn't he be a good resource for that?
Yes, I will make sure to reach out to the Cape Fear COG for that.
Not discounting your expertise, Mo, but there may be kind of like precedent out there already for maybe even some more bullets to pull in to this. I think that might be a good idea. Thank you, Scott.
So I have a list of all the zones that Southport UDO has, and I've mapped them out to what the county's UDO is. And I think, I don't know, I spent a lot of time on this already, to say the least. It'd be interesting to get your feedback and thoughts, and I'm not sure if I should do that just over email or...
Yeah, please reach out, and I'd love to
Okay.
see it. Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question. So we have voluntary annexation. Is involuntary annexation not a possibility?
Not at all.
Can you explain that?
It's against the law.
Eminent domain doesn't work, or no? So if I was a PR company, I would think I might try to promote to these encapsulated ETJ properties in the corridor, like to invite them to be part of the solution, working together for the future of Southport.
And I think another carrot to add to that would be maybe another overlay district for those individuals to give them something different. Because again, a few ETJ folks have been screaming their head off in certain neighborhoods about very, very specific things. And if I... Sure. Both. So I think it would be interesting to have, again, the county is I'm not gonna call anything right or wrong, but it's one color and then the city is another color, and I just don't know if there's a shade in the middle that you could have as an overlay district to kind of appeal to some of the lots that are on House Street. To sort of invite them back, I guess, so to speak.
But then that goes back again to the county being amenable to have that. I mean, that's kind of how we get back to all of this. They've got to say, you know, that's a pretty good idea. We can utilize that in other places. We're really doing a sales job to them as well.
Would the annexation be just the annexation? Would it be an annexation with, it would have to be a rezoning, I guess, because if they're part of the county, then say they're R-7500. I just didn't know what that process looked like, and I think it would be helpful to explain to ETJ folks what that process looked like. Might help.
It would happen simultaneously. So you would be able to do a zoning change and annexation. You would do your annexation first. So if you weren't annexed in, then you wouldn't move forward with the zoning. So you would start the zoning process and then take the zoning and annexation to the Board of Aldermen on the same day. Have hearings the same evenings, the vote the same evening, do the annexation first. If the annexation then passed, you could then vote on the rezoning. So the rezoning itself would be just like any other rezoning. Take a recommendation from the Planning Board to the Board of Aldermen, a public hearing, then the Board of Aldermen make the final decision. Annexation, there has to be a resolution passed that it meets, all the statutory requirements from the city by the city clerk. Then there's a public hearing at the Board of Aldermen level, and then they are voting on that.
One more annexation question. Can anyone, could I annex myself?
Only
Even
if
though,
you're contiguous to the city limits, yes.
The rezoning is part of the solution. What Mojo said about contiguous, we can't have spot zoning where we have, Chris, Scott, would love to have your two lots come into town. We can't do that. It's got to be contiguous, and that adds a layer of complication, but it is a solution. And my gut response is, we don't have all the answers, and I swear, I just think somehow we need to get people together who understand this, and that means county, that means city, and that means council of governments, right? Council of governments, all in the same room and talking together. And this is not going to be one meeting, it's going to be several meetings, it's going to be brainstorming. We can't go in and demand a thing to the county. We can reason, and y'all have come up with some great ideas. Overlay districts and transitional zoning, and I think all of these are part of the solution, and may be a solution right here. This overlay district, but we don't even know if the county allows overlay districts. And if they're going to redo their UDO, it may be 2 years before a overlay district is allowed, or maybe we can have it tomorrow. Again, this is my ignorance talking. Chris, you've gone further than anybody, I think, has. We're trying to put the two
They've
together.
got about 6 overlay districts
Pardon?
right now. They have about 6 overlay districts.
They have 6 overlay districts, which is a blessing, maybe, in disguise right there that we can work with. Thank you. We don't have the answers. We don't have all the answers.
I'm not sure that we're any further than we were when we started talking about all this, right?
That's okay.
Because it's numbing for all of us. And I would include the county staff in on that, and that happens in my experience of too many years that I don't want to count. And Mo, you're the same way. We've seen this happen in legislation a lot, where things get passed they're passed, and then they're handed to some staff somewhere and said, okay, now make that work. And they're going, what? And having nightmares over it. So now we're doing all of that. I think we helped with some things to talk about in conversation, and maybe try to encourage, request some meetings for the groups, the affected groups to talk and maybe get some input from the COG about it. Like I say, Wes may have some great bullet points to add into all of this. Do we want to, and folks, we've talked about this before, do we want to continue with the idea of drafting a letter for these affected properties to use these bullet points, and let's get going with that so that we can kind of do a twofer with that letter, to inform them again about the meeting, to ask them to be a part of a solution for Southport. I like that idea, really, to be part of a solution. And see if we can get this out before next week's meeting. Like, you don't have anything else to do, Mo, sorry. But, I mean, some of us can help if you need help with that. But you've probably already, I think you said you'd already been working on a draft. So are we agreed to continue working on that, try to get that done? Yes? I think we've got consensus on that. Does that help? What else can you?
Yes, just for clarification, so you would like me to finish crafting the letter for the voluntary annexation. Do you want me to go further than the House Street corridor, or do you want just to start there? How would you like me to approach that?
I got it. Well,
I mean, obviously it can't be
We're-
everyone,
yeah,
has
oh,
the
yeah.
contiguous
we're,
pieces.
yeah, we're looking for ideas about how we can make this palatable for them to want to take it. Well, one thing that we're asking for experts to help us on things, okay, but we've got something we've been working on already with our comprehensive plan with our steering committee. Now, they've put together a lot of stuff already about the future plans of this area. So it might be a good idea to really take those ideas and push those forward and show what the design we had for the area, how it was going to develop over the next 30, 40, 50 years to encourage them to really work with us on these areas, because we have put so much into it to, blend it not just for the central business district, but all the way out in multiple directions. So it would benefit anybody, whether they were ETJ or not. So that, to me, I think that would be a good idea, to take all those ideas that the steering committees had as far as that. And as far as the corridor goes, that might be something that we could, because they're going to be doing that, certain areas that they can schedule that so that they're not, doing it all at one time. They're not, until they've reviewed. So if we maybe could look for some type of agreement in if they wish to do it in certain areas, like definitely up to 211 to Sawdust Trail would be one, and anything Rob Gandy or that area that is going to. I mean, we can't do it all, but we can get it closer to the city so that we can kind of work with them on that, because they're going to be tied up with all that outside area too. So that's, I guess that's my 2 cents for it.
What, Mo, how many properties are we talking about to do to try to pull something together before this meeting? Or is it better just to stick with the corridor?
I think probably starting with the corridor and seeing what kind of response we get there before putting the energy and the money of going out further. Because I think that's really what I feel, if I'm not mistaken, is what the heart of this really is right now. Like, we need to make sure we get this corridor taken care of. Like, that seems to be the impetus. Not that all of it isn't, don't get me wrong, but this seems to be one of the major points that we want to make sure that we get that corridor taken care of. But however you would like me to move ahead. I started a list of them, but I stopped. It got it's getting tedious. So
It got scary, didn't it? And it's frustrating to me to say, well, let's just do the corridor, because, you know, all of these other areas that are adjacent, they're all important. I mean, it's having to, but we're starting to talk about, you know, contacting neighborhoods and, you know, trying to get people mobilized in neighborhoods to say, this is what we need to do, folks. And of course, then you get into HOAs and the arguments that will ensue over that. And so hard as I think it is to say, we know the corridor is something that really concerns us. For the immediate, let's just do this. And of course, you know, we can also ask the county, I mean, all you can do is ask, to have more meetings, to be able to talk with folks if they're, and I'll just say, I hope they're inundated on the 25th to where they can't get everybody in there that wants to talk to them to understand. Hint, hint, people. So that they have to have more meetings, and it will extend naturally, as it should, for this to all work out to be the best. So I guess, does anybody else have an issue with just concentrating on the corridor for the next week? I mean, because really that's what we're looking at.
Questions. Mo, what percentage of the properties are commercial and highway business versus residential and lesser zones?
on the corridor.
5% of
Well,
all?
are you asking?
I'm asking, we're talking about, is the corridor even 5% of the ETJ, ex-ETJ property owners? And if we're going to try to fill next week, if we write a letter to 5% of the people, I'm just using 5%, but I think it's probably close to it. When you look at all the ETJ we lost, we're not going to fill that. We're not going to fill that room. Property owners, commercial owners, they may be, we don't know how they're going to respond, but the majority of these people are going to be residential. And how many are we talking about individual property owners and lots out there? Are we talking about 800, 500, 200?
The whole ETJ is just over 800.
800, okay, 800. That's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of addresses. But if we really want to fill next week with people, we're going to have to do more than the commercial corridor. Can we send out a series of letters? Can we just accept the fact that we cannot fill next week? How do we fill that room next week with people who it's become reality to? I'm seriously, I agree with you. And Mo, you are human, so you can only do so much. But the card is in many ways the most visible. But there's some properties out there that need to understand what may happen next to them with this change to county. And you put this on a one-page letter, right? what the comprehensive plan's planning and what this, all the points and everything. If you can do that on a one-page letter, because nobody will read the second page.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're on the same
I've been trying to be
page.
realistic on this with what we can really accomplish next week. And, yeah, wish we had more time, but what's the best way to address this getting in front of people? Practical.
Let's think the letter for the corridor, okay? Then let's use social media, young lady in the back, let's get this, expand the letter a little bit, how much more we can put in there to give information on what we've already been looking at for the comp plan, those suggestions. I mean, I know those are not in place, but I think it's a good idea to say we have plans in the works, we have thoughts in the works for what we're trying to get done that would include some of these areas. So use social media in this instance. Normally, I think, I'd be the first to say it's hammered us to death in this town. But I would say let's use it to our advantage in this. We can put the letter that's going to the corridor folks, and then if we can expand, spice it up a little bit more, Cheyenne, to put it on Facebook and on the city website. Does that make sense, Mo, to do that? What would be, you gotta look, is there a
I
con?
want to be clear that we're talking about the same letter. Because what I was asked to consider was a petition for, or just giving out information on voluntary annexation, not to promote this meeting, is what I was under the impression this letter was for.
Let's do the letter for annexation then, okay, voluntary annexation. And then take the other limb will be social media to make sure we advertise this meeting and that it's an opportunity for folks, for our ETJ residents to come in and ask questions and voice concerns about how it's going to affect their properties. And beyond that, if we feel the need to request another meeting, or maybe set up a city meeting to where we can discuss it, and have county representation at that. I mean, you're gonna know as much as the county knows when they let you know it, and so you can be involved in that conversation. It's just such a rare bird that we're all dealing with. It's hard to say which entities to pull in. Does that make any sense? Does that make sense, Cheyenne, as far as what can go on Facebook to help out with it?
I think so. I'll work with Mo to figure out the best course of action for what we can get on the website and our socials. I will say, in addition to Facebook and Instagram, some of these like hotter topic conversations and meetings, I do also post to Nextdoor, because that seems to be another good way to get out to folks. But yes, I will get with Mo and we will get something drafted up and get a game plan and a campaign put together that we can get stuff out for.
And I'm sorry that it's quick turnaround to do it, but I trust y'all to be able to find the right language to put out there. And Nextdoor is another good app for this area. It stays pretty warm all the time. So I think that is a good idea. And other groups will pick it up and share, I'm sure. And let's be sure to, if we can, to be sure to contact the city with, if residents have questions, to contact the city rather than it just floating out there in social media land and they're not getting the right information, because we know how often that happens. I know that puts more on y'all too, for folks to be calling y'all, but you'd rather get them the right information.
Yes, and I would encourage them to call us, as well as the county has been really requesting that if I get anyone with questions, to send them to the county. They want to field the calls. So that's why I mentioned it earlier, that they really want to hear things. So I hope that is encouraging.
And it is a good time to start that handoff so that they're understanding the questions that are coming in and knowing what they need to hone in their responses. So does this sound like a decent plan of action for us to take in this vein anyway? Mo, making sense for you? Okay.
You know, I got to look at WECT, 5:30 News, 6 o'clock News, WWAY, talk shows. These are things that, and the county should be given the exact amount of time on these interviews. I mean, seriously, people watch the news, and I think they absolutely, these other media you talked about, do it. It's got to be done. But if somebody, John, a friend, or whoever, set up an interview with somebody in Southport and set up an interview with somebody in the county, there would be such an amazing knowledge of what's happening. And I don't know these people, but there's got to be somebody who can pick up the phone and say, boy, we got a hot topic for you, and we'd like for you to talk to us and the county. When you can do it in the next 2 days, you reach a few 100,000 people. I don't know. Again, what have we got to lose? I don't do Facebook, sorry.
Mr. Pender, so I can speak to that a little bit. All the local news outlets have picked it up. They are promoting it as a story. Now, if there is something that the planning board would like to direct Mo and I to work on, we can. However, since this is coming from the county,
Yes.
the county is who they're going to talk to. We have been in discussion, myself, Mo, and the communications director from Brunswick County, with a couple of the local news outlets. So those conversations are being had. But if, kind of as Mo had suggested, asked for direction, if there is something more specific, then we need to know, so that way we know what to get out there. So while we're working on this communications campaign, those notes, please go ahead and send them to Mo so we can make sure that they're included in the campaign that we're going to work on, so we can get it out there.
All right, I watch WECT, and they talk to everybody. They don't have just one side, and they love controversy. And I think it's wrong that they're only going to talk to the county, because they've got a whole town down here that's having their head presented to them. So I politely disagree with that. I think that WECT would love to get the other side of it. They've got to balance it out. That's why I said they've got to have the county involved in anything that they talk to us too. But it's foolish to think that they're going to ignore a whole town with their interviews. I know they love all sides, and I think that this is, and it may not be done tomorrow, but it's just, you're trying to do everything you can to get people there on a meeting, and depends on whether you turn on the TV or whether you turn on Facebook or what, our neighborhood or whatever. We need to try them all. We need to try them all as quickly as possible. And if you're already talking, wonderful. So how can we help you talk to John, a friend, or whatever, and say, we need to have our side along with the county. Help us. And we got a meeting next week that people really don't know that much about.
get those notes over to Mo, and we'll work on them. We've done all we can right now since the meeting was set less than 48 hours ago. So with that short turnaround causes a shorter turnaround for us, but get those notes. I know, Chris, you had said that you have some, Fred, you too. Like, get all of those notes to Sue and to Mo, and we will work on it and do the best we can.
God bless you.
Mo, you said you needed the addresses to everyone that's on House Street.
No, I've got them.
Oh, you got, okay.
Thank you.
So the one action item was to social media. The second action item, I think we touched on, was sending a letter to all of those 52 parcels. Okay, so that's the second action item. Okay. First one was the social media thing that I really didn't follow, to be honest with you.
Yes, the second
Okay.
one was the letter, correct. Yes.
Mo, what is your count on the voluntary annexations along the corridor? I saw about 45. He said 52.
I got around 50 myself, yes. So it's just depends on how far you go back. Do you count the second lot off of Howe Street that's connected? I was going to. That may have another connection on the other side of this. So that's why, if you're just strictly on there, you're correct, Fred. But it depends on what parcels you include, so, yeah.
I think it's important to be mindful of most of these addresses are not Southport addresses, so challenging. But they're all business district or highway commercial, all of which I think we should recommend as neighborhood commercial, which if you read the definition of neighborhood commercial fits perfectly for what's there. I love the idea of folks coming out to next week's meeting. I'm afraid of that in a way, in that this conversation's been great and educational, and I think understanding sort of what's going on or trying to understand what's going on, I'm pretty sure I got a grasp of it. But if we get 100 people to show up, and the county, again, their job is to transition these lots, my lot, from city ETJ districts to something that they have. And if we show up with anger, frustration, all this other stuff that really doesn't help the conversation or help them do their job, I think just be mindful of that. Of if we show up to the meeting next week, come with some suggestions, some ideas of actual action items. And also to Roy's point, that's hard because this stuff, again, I've been on the planning board for 4 years, and about the 18-month, 24-month mark, it kind of clicked for me. And then I even put both of these UDOs through some AI tools to kind of compare and contrast things to help surface a lot of stuff, which helped me a lot. I mean, there's a lot to go in here. But again, I say all this because next week it would almost be nice if we met, maybe Scott, me, Sue, and you, as a small committee of sorts that spoke of, here are the ETJ members of the planning board, here is what they understand, and here's their recommendations that we bring forward. So then it is this sort of, it's the planning board, but it's the county residents, two of which ended up being kidnapped by this whole thing. So I would almost advocate for a committee of sorts with I just volunteered Scott and spoke for him, and Sue. So I don't know.
I would say we just form it like a review committee. Can we just do that? If we all have a consensus of it, then it would just be the three of you meeting just to review that along with Mo. And I would have no problem with that at all whatsoever.
I'll even do all the work. I mean, I'll bring all of what the recommendations could be, and then you can tell me they're crazy, they're dumb, and I can map all that stuff out, and I don't know. This is really important.
I don't disagree with you at all. And what I have heard is that there's going to be two sides of this meeting. There's going to be a side for the people who own property in the ETJ. So they can ask the questions like, what is going to happen to my property? And then there's going to be a side where it's just residents of Southport being able to come and speak and what they would like to see, or just open questions. So I think they're hoping to guide the people with the property so they can get, boots on the ground question answered. Whereas, yes, I, as a citizen of Southport, would like answers as well. They may be completely different than what's going to happen to, is my house going to become non-conforming? Is my, those types of things. So that's just some information to put out there also. If you guys would like to sit down and talk about this, and we send a ETJ planning board recommendations to the
Could you reach
board.
out to their planner tomorrow and ask the question of, hey, the planning board met last night. They kicked the idea around of putting together a small committee and putting together some recommendations, or maybe not even recommendations, ideas or thoughts of how we can transition this property to the county, to maybe kind of seed some of their work. And if they tell you to get lost, then we don't meet. But if they are interested in it, then maybe we meet. I don't know. Maybe the committee being contingent on their interest.
I'm more than happy to reach out.
So we're agreeable to seeing what we can pull together then as far as a schedule for a committee meeting. Correct, Mo? Add something else to your calendar. I would say for me, I'll just go ahead and tell you, for me, next week, I have a course presentation to do on the evening of the 23rd, but beyond that, I'm okay. And that starts at 7, but I have to get ready for that. So if we could just kind of work around that, but we can do whatever we need to do otherwise to make that happen. And I think that's a good idea, Chris. Thank you.
May I suggest that y'all's recommendations and thoughts be sent out in rough form or whatever to the rest of us, because it's going to be a way for us to put our thoughts together for the Thursday meeting.
I think so. There's the quorum and there's the whole conversation around. I think we would have to have a special meeting to talk about that and discuss it.
Is just informal memos not legal?
No, I don't.
It's not.
You can't send official records like that.
That's right. You're right. Absolutely right.
I don't want, and I think to Roy's point, it's also very important. It's important to me personally, but not to speak for other people and to speak for yourself. And if we do meet as a committee next week, we would approach the county as, hey, person A, person B, person C met from the planning board, and here are some ideas and thoughts that we had that we hoped could help you seed some of the work that you have. This is not representative of the city of Southport. This is not representative of the planning board as a whole, because we haven't met on this, but this is just a small committee that got together and thought through some of these things.
Are we in consensus on this? Yes? And we love it when folks say, I'll do the work. There you go. Mo. He said he'd do the work. This is great. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you saying that, Chug, and for your help with that. We're going to miss you so much. I know. You'll be a county person. Okay. Mo, are you good with everything for which you've been tasked
Yes,
again?
ma'am. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
I have something that's not on the agenda. I spoke to Mo about this. There's a property up on Howe Street in the business district in the city limits that's violating zoning uses. And I asked Mo if she would just talk about that, because it's interesting, the process. I mean, we go through the UDO and help formulate it and amend it, and then here's a real case scenario where it's not the right use for a property, and then what happens after that? Does it, so if Mo knows what I'm talking about.
So this is a property that is, has a zoning violation, as mentioned. So when it was brought forward to staff, we took it to the code enforcement officers. They send a letter of violation to the property owner. The property owner then has 30 days to abate the situation or not. They did not, so now the next step after 30 days, they get another letter that states that they're going to be a hearing. So at that hearing, it's going to be, they will be talking about what the issues, what needs to happen, and the next steps from there. Once the hearing, then that property has the ability to appeal or then come into compliance, depends on how the hearing goes. So I honestly have not been involved with many of the hearings themselves, so I don't know how that is structured, so that's code enforcement.
Is it okay if I mention the property specifically? So people here understand and can see in real life what's going on.
I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure how that works with, if it is a public, yes, I don't see why you can't, that's fine. It's a property on North Howe that is a retail, it's in BG, and they have outdoor storage that is not in compliance.
That's vague, but
I don't think it's appropriate to just start talking about code enforcement violations out in, at a public meeting. I'm sorry.
well, hearing about the hearings and stuff was interesting, and I guess the public can attend that if they would like to.
I believe they can, yes. I'm not sure how it gets advertised, honestly. I know the property owners and probably maybe adjacent property owners get notified. I will look up the process and let you know. How about that?
Is that process in the UDO?
Yes, it was in the UDO as well as in the Code of Ordinances, yes.
And I hate to bring up the other elephant or another elephant in the room, but the issue that started this whole legislation, have those fines been, what happened with the fines?
That is going to be, they were going to appeal the violation, and is going to the Board of Adjustment at the end of this month. So it will be heard by the Board of Adjustment.
At the Board of Adjustment regular meeting?
Yes, regular meeting, and it was changed to July 30th because we needed, some of the representation, attorneys weren't available. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure so.
Is there anything else, folks, any additional other business to be brought before us tonight? We'll move on then to item J, which is our announcements. And we'll just emphasize again these meeting dates, for the county meetings at the senior center. And then that's 2 meetings on the same day, the 21, 5:30 and 7, correct? And then the county planning board the county is on August the 12th at the government complex, right? As normal for their meetings. As usual, your member information is the final items in your packets. So with our business concluded, I'll note that Mr. Lachlan and Chris Jones both returned to non-voting status. And we thank you for your help tonight, gentlemen. And Mo, thank you for your presentations, trying to help us understand everything that we can at this point. So now, with no other business, can I get a motion, please, that we adjourn? Will, and a second to that? Thank you, Roy. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you so much, folks. It passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 7:41. Thank you for your attendance and your interest.